Hey guys, what's up? I have today a former Major League Manager, Jeff Banister of the Texas Rangers, coming on board with us today. I'm excited to have Jeff. Jeff has been a mentor of mine, is just an amazing person, has so much insight, so much wisdom for you today. If you feel like you personally need some help going through the mental game, check out my personal development course and my mental skills course at mentaledge.training. Hopefully you guys enjoy this with Jeff Banister. Thanks. We'll see you on the channel. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we got a very special guest, one of my favorite people in baseball, one of my first managers in minor league baseball, was with me kind of all the way through the minor leagues up into the big leagues. He is a former manager of the Texas Rangers, Jeff Banister, known in the baseball world as Bani. Bani, welcome to our channel. How's it going, man?
Yeah, it's awesome, brother, man. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Great to see you, by the way, and hear your voice. It's been a long time, and one of my all-time favorite people and players. And been, like I told you earlier, I've been keeping up with some of the things you've been doing, and it's pretty incredible. I can't tell you how proud I am of you and Bracken and to see your kids grow. And so this will be fun.
Yeah, I'm totally looking forward to it. I had this idea to start getting some guys online here, start a channel, start going with, and I was like, I need to get Bani on this thing. I'm like, talk about wisdom, somebody who's been a player, a coach, has managed at the big league level. I'm like, holy cow, Bani's my guy. I got to talk to him. So now what I want to do, Bani, with you is you had a career in the minor leagues. You got up to the big leagues. A very interesting story there. So I want you to kind of start us from, say, your minor league career. Walk us through that. Get us through the big leagues, and then to where you are today as a manager, and now doing a special assistant with the Pirates.
Yeah, you know what? It's pretty well documented when you spend 35 years in baseball. They tell your story if you stick around long enough. But I was drafted out of University of Houston by an old scout, Buzzy Keller, who is no longer with us, but just a great guy, and one of those great baseball names, right? Buzzy Keller, Carlton Buzzy Keller. And he told me when I signed for $1,000 in a Wendy's, no less.
Did you get a?
I had to pay
for
a
meal with that or anything, or?
Well, I had to pay for his lunch. How about that one? But no, I went and played. First of all, I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to be drafted. Felt like that I had the physical skills to play. However, a number of the injuries that I'd already incurred at that point, broken neck, bone cancer, knee surgery, 7 ankle surgeries, it was going to make it very challenging to be in this game as a player for very long. And so when I signed, I went straight to Bradenton, Florida, to Pirate City, and started my career in A-ball, and kind of, just really kind of maneuvered around inside the Pirate organization from A-ball to AA. Never having great breakout years, but having decent years. And somewhere along the way, I'll tell a story of when I got the call, which is to me a really neat story. Terry Collins was our AAA manager at the time in 1991, and you remember Pirate City, and I don't know, was it just the pay phones when you first signed?
Oh, yeah.
And you had to stand in line, right? I tell people you had to stand in line to make a phone call.
Yeah, you had a calling card and everything.
Yeah, and Karen and I had, we'd been married a couple of years. We had just bought a house, and I was sitting. Once I got on the payphone, we were talking, and early in the day I picked up one of those little pocket schedules, and I was joking with her because she wasn't going to come to spring training, and I'd circled this date on that pocket schedule, And I told her, I said, hey, if I make it to the big leagues by this date, July 23rd, guess where the first road trip will be? And she said, where? I said, Houston. I'll be able to come home and see you. That's beautiful. And so, well, fast forward through all that. And just to kind of catch up a little bit in there, frontline catcher, backup catcher, first baseman, third baseman, outfielder, kind of jack of all trades. And I tell kids today when you're playing, we specialized our athletes so much in today's game where I tell them, I said, look, you're going to find a manager someday or a coach someday. He's going to ask you, have you ever played here? Don't say no.
Right.
You're a baseball player, right? And that's one of the assets that I had was the ability to kind of move around the field. And anyway, so that night we got home, that July 22nd, 1991. Me and Whitey Richardson were in our apartment in Buffalo, New York. It was after a game, and the phone rings, and I thought it was Karen because they were traveling her and my mom were traveling to Oklahoma City because the next day we were going to fly to Oklahoma City. And he jokes around and says, hey, it's TC. You're going to the big leagues tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. We used to joke with each other all the time.
Right.
We're all dreamers, right? We're low round picks. We're the grunts of the world trying to make our way. And I get on the phone and it's TC, and he says, how long have you been waiting on this phone call? I said, well, if you're my wife, a couple of hours. And he says, no, this phone call. I said, what are you talking about? He said, Don Slott got hurt. You're going to the big leagues tomorrow. And then this is not Terry Collins. He wouldn't play this type of joke, right? I think at the time I was hitting about 265, 270, and I wasn't on the roster. So had so many things against the whole process, right?
Right.
And by the end of the phone call, he had convinced me that it was really him and that I was going to the big leagues, and Don Slaughter got hurt. And next morning, got up, got on that plane, first time I'd ever flown first class to Pittsburgh, walked in that locker room there in Three River Stadium, and they already had the jersey there with my name on it, and played that night, had an opportunity. And why that whole pocket schedule comes into play is that the exact day that I had circled on that pocket schedule was July 23rd, and my major league debut was on July 23rd.
That's amazing.
Pretty incredible moment. And I tell the story a lot of times to young guys. You never know if you're ever going to get an opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, if you do, you have to try to embrace and soak in every single moment you can, because you never know when that moment's over. Yeah. We're not all guaranteed this 10-year career, this 20-year career. My major league playing career lasted 5 days.
Mm. And you thought you were getting called up, like I could be there the rest of the year, or like I'm moving to Pittsburgh, right?
For sure. Well, Jim Leland, who I love, hard-nosed man, but yet had giant heart, pulled me aside after the first night, and he said, listen, you're going to be here a while. It doesn't look like Sluggo Don Slott's going to be available to us for quite a while. He has pulled an oblique. So settle in. We've got some double headers coming down the road in Atlanta. He had laid out when I was going to catch. But I know Jim loved to get his rookie players in as soon as he could, and he got me in the first night. I pinch hit for Doug Drabeck off of Dan Petrie. Got a base hit in the hole. Ironically enough, the things that I struggled with the most, through a broken neck and knee surgeries and ankle surgeries, and it's what got me to first base and got legged out that hit. And I look back on it and I think I wouldn't want it any other way, really, because it's the struggles and the challenges that you have getting to a certain pinnacle in your lifetime, not in a baseball career, but in a lifetime. They were the things that carried me to that point. And they were the things that I was challenged with earlier in my lifetime, to struggle, even walk, run, or going through rehab every single time. So, but yeah, it was kind of that first great moment in my baseball career. 5 days later, it was over with. I went back to AAA, finished a year out, went to play winter ball in Dominican Republic. One Sunday afternoon, I was playing and having a really good winter ball. I go to throw a ball to second base, runner was stealing, and tear my UCL. And I'm out for an entire year. I come back, 1993. At the last day of spring training, I'm there at those backfields at Pirate City. I'm dragging that heavy bag of catcher's gear off the field, and Chet Montgomery's waiting for me at, right there, right where the batting cages are at, where you go into the locker, getting ready to go to the locker rooms. And I'm looking behind me, and I'm the last guy coming off the field. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm getting ready to get released.
Like he's just waiting for you.
It just, I was the only guy. I looked back, I looked over my shoulder, there was nobody. I'm like, I don't, it's the walk of broken dreams, right?
Yes.
It's the nightmare every minor leaguer, every player goes through, is that your last day. And I got up to where he was at, and he said, "Hey, need to talk to you." And I said, "Chad, if you're going to release me, just do it." He said, No. We're not going to release you. We got another opportunity for you. So they asked me if I would go to AA and manage a team for a couple of weeks. John Walkenfuss was the manager at the time and had to have back surgery and was not going to be there. Spin Williams was a pitching coach. And I'm like, you want me to go? These guys are just, a number of those guys have been my teammates in spring training. You want me to go be the manager? Well, yeah, player, manager, all this. It's only going to be for a couple of weeks, right?
Right.
And you know what hits you right then is like, this is what they think about you.
Right.
They love your playing skills so much they want you to go manage.
Yes. It's time, right?
So I agreed. I did it, and then 2 weeks turned into a month. And Chad, it was, first of all, I grew up a coach's son. My dad was a high school football coach. So I grew up in that atmosphere. I knew that someday that that's probably where I would transition to. I just didn't know that it was going to be at that time. And I fell in love with the impact that you have on players, or that you can have, or how you can change the trajectory of another human being's life. Not just on the baseball field, but everyday life. Mm-hmm. And so 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, 2 months turned into the rest of the year, which turned into the next year being a full-time minor league manager, which 6 years managing in the minor leagues, 7 years managing the minor leagues, and then going to the big leagues as a coach, mm-hmm. And then back to the minor leagues to be the field coordinator. then an opportunity which I got to share with Jacob, my son. When I got the phone call, we were traveling. He was with me and visiting all the clubs. And we were in Florida, and I got the call that they wanted me to go up and be the bench coach for the Pirates, which led to 5 years being a bench coach, which led to an opportunity that I always dreamed of, but never really, I think when I stopped chasing that dream, Chad, it was when things started to happen and got that opportunity, and Texas called, interviewed, and got to manage some of the best players on the planet, a couple division titles, and as these things go, there's a lifespan and of coaches in each individual's place, but yeah, it's been such an incredible roller coaster ride. But that's kind of the long and short of it, if you will.
No, that's awesome. So something that just stood out to me there. So you're now coaching, you're a manager, you're in the big leagues as a bench coach. You said the opportunity just came. So when you were a bench coach with Pittsburgh, did you have it, was your mindset, you said it just came to you, did you ever think no, I want to be a big league manager?
I did. I really did. I think that it's what I wanted to do when I was, even when I was playing. There were a lot of Chuck Tanner, Bill Verdon, Tony La Russa, Jim Leland, Gene Lamont. I mean, there are a number of guys that Rocky Bridges, these guys that impacted me in my life, and it really took an interest. My own dad, the day my dad passed away, we were having a conversation. We were talking about what my future looked like, and I was still a player at the time, and I'd only played. I was in my second year playing.
Yeah,
and so he asked me then, "What do you want to do when your playing career is done?" I said, "Well, I'd love an opportunity to manage." What a manager was in my mind and what he really is, they were worlds apart in the very beginning. However, as time went on, and guys like yourself and Craig and Jack Wilson, and guys that when you get to be a coach, and I use that term, and I'll tell you, some of this we can get into, right? Is it that I think we miss the thought really on what a coach is, what a coach used to be, what he is, right? And there's instructors and there's coaches. A coach, a manager, we lead to try to coach the heart and the mind, right? And that's the way I looked at it of, how can I impact an individual, but also a collective group of young men to A, become better people, B, better baseball players, and knowing full well that their baseball careers it's not really long when we compare it to what the lifespan is. And so when your career is over with as a baseball player, what have I helped you with to move you on into the next part of who you are? Mm-hmm. And so, but answer your question, the idea of managing was always intriguing to me. Wanted to do it, held on to it very tightly early on, okay, which was what I said. Once I let go of that, because there was a lot of different opportunities along the way, but there's only 30 of those jobs.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was scouting at the time. I kind of just got into scouting, and I'm like, I'm seeing you on TV now, and then I'm like, dude, he made it, And I'm like, because I knew your story, the obstacles you went through. You freaking had a broken neck. Maybe we should share that story. But man, I was like, I couldn't be more proud of you. I was like, dude, that's my guy. He's in the big leagues, and I was like pissed off at myself. I'm like, I wanted to play in the big leagues for you. You know what I mean? Because you were a guy that everything you did, you worked for, and you could see the work ethic. And the first time you were my manager, when I was 18 years old when you were my manager in Lynchburg, Virginia. I'll never forget when I spent the first half of the year in Augusta. This was in '96, and I get called up, and I don't know how long you were at Lynchburg as manager at that point, but I called up. We kind of somewhat knew each other from spring training in the past, and I come up, shake your hand, I'm like, "Hey, what's up, Bani?" And you're like, you got your Texas accent. I'm like, he's like, Herman, I'll tell you, Lynchburg sucks. So for some reason, that has always stuck with me, and I was only able to really play with you for it was actually that half a season in '96, and then the fall came, and then I went and played for you in the Hawaiian Winter League when that was going on. And we were in Honolulu. We had some awesome players like Michael Barrett, Brad Fulmer. I'm probably missing a bunch of guys here, but it was a pretty good big leaguers. That was fun. And we actually lived together in Hawaii with a couple other, Mark Ferris, Mike Ashby, Steve Toby, all these awesome dudes that I just love to death. So it was, but even though we're not, what are we about 10, 15 years apart in age, it was a cool relationship because I felt like you weren't old enough to be my dad, but you were old enough to be like an older brother and somebody that I could look up to and just like, dude, look at this guy work, and I knew I would love for you to share your story because you mentioned you had neck surgery. This was back in your playing days because we all go through obstacles in life, and this is was an obstacle for you if you don't mind sharing that story.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with when I was a sophomore in high school. I'll talk about the bone cancer first. And I had knee surgery when I was a sophomore in high school, reconstructive knee surgery. And then I was also a football player. So played multiple sports. I mean, you grow up in Texas and your dad's a high school football coach, you are going to play football, just hands down. No questions asked. Well, anyway, so had reconstructive knee surgery as a sophomore. As a junior, we were playing in a playoff game, and we were playing in Astrodome. Went to make a tackle, twisted my ankle, which never really got better through the fall, right? Started developing some flu-like symptoms. Ankle was just, excruciating pain. Eventually found out that I had bone cancer, which, had some cysts that were starting to grow on the bone, started to eat the lower ankle area of the bone, started, deteriorating. In and out of the hospital for a number of months. I think in the hospital for 4 months at one point. Isolation. At one point, the doctors talked about amputating the leg, which, as a young, you feel like you're bulletproof even when you're going through things like that. I told the doctor then you can't take my leg. I'm going to play Major League Baseball. You don't understand, all these things. Well, fortunately enough, I was able to overcome. I was able to be clean, recover. Went on to play high school baseball only 1 year. My senior year was the only year that in high school I was able to play baseball, and I was not very good at the time. Skills were so rusty, and you grow from 15 to 18, and the body's just going crazy and trying to put everything together. I was fortunate enough to have been got a scholarship to play at a junior college Went to Baytown Lee Junior College. We were playing in the fall. Coach Rod Sosby. It was the last weekend of the fall, and it was the last game. And the night before, he told me, he said, "Hey, there's a couple of scouts that are coming to see you tomorrow. We weren't scheduled to play, but I'm going to have you play for the first 5 innings. They want to see you play." I said, "Cool. Anything for a scout, right? The next little piece in the dream." And so we were playing in Alvin, Texas, home in Nolan Ryan. It was the 5th inning. Runner at third base. I'm catching. Less than 2 outs. I think it was 1 out, something like that. Fly ball hit the shallow right field. Right fielder comes in. It's easy catch, high fly ball. One of those that runner's probably not going to go on. So he catches it pretty much flat-footed. Runner takes off. Aggressive runner. Throws it flat-footed into me. Ball goes up the line, up the third base line. And so I go after the ball. I think I'm on the inside of the baseline. I go to my knees to kind of, because a right-handed thrower, that ball's, flat-footed. He got didn't get on top of it, get on the side of it. Ball's running up the line. And so I go to my knees to kind of try to scoop the ball, make a tag on the way by. About the time the ball arrived, I look up and I'm going to make a tag, and the runner's coming right at me, and I'm right dead center in the baseline. And so my thought was to brace myself. Probably bad move on my part. And then his thought was to try to go over the top of me. And as we collided, his knee hit the top of my head. So forcing me going up into him, the force of him coming down on me, shattered 3 vertebrae in my neck, which rendered me momentarily unconscious on the field. And when I came to, I was staring up at my dad. My mom and dad were at the game. They'd come to see me play. It was close enough to where they lived that they could come see. And my dad was standing over me, and being football coach, he recognized kind of the dire straits I was in at the time. And he looked right at me and told me, "You can't feel anything, can you?" And I was able to tell him no. And so laid there on the field until the ambulance got there. They scooped me up, got me to the hospital, and by the grace of God and fortunate enough that I had some great surgeons. They took care of me immediately. Didn't have any real feeling at all or movement when they first got me into the hospital. Did surgery. They put me in traction. At first they didn't think I was going to make it through the night.
It was that serious.
Yeah. And next day did surgery on the front, where they just picked bone fragments out. And it was essentially they were trying to relieve the pressure on the spinal cord. The spinal cord was obviously not severed or anything like that. It was depressed over 50%, bruised very badly. And that was October 23rd. And when I got hit, surgery on the 24th on Halloween. And the only reason why I remember that I know it was Halloween because when I was in ICU after the surgery, and there was a kid that was, they were doing emergency surgery on right next to me, who had got hit by a car. But they did surgery that day. And at that point, they had relieved enough pressure on the spinal cord when they went back in. They went in the back and did essentially the same thing and taking bone fragments out and, carved out bone and plated me and wired me together. But I started regaining a little bit of feeling, in which progressively every day I started getting a little more. However, the amount of time in the hospital, I went from 225, 230 pounds, 139 pounds. When I got out of the hospital, I had to kind of learn how to walk, although I walked with a walker, and had to learn to go through all the rehab to do that. And, it's kind of, this is where the Texan comes out in all of us, or in me. When they were wheeling me out of the hospital, my grandfather was there. And he looked right at the surgeon, and he said, Leroy, you think Jeff had a horseshoe in his pocket when he got hit? And he said, no, Leon, he had a golden horseshoe shoved up when he got hit. And the doctor asked me, he says, I guess your next question is, when are you going to get to play baseball again? I said, no, I'm not asking that question, because I know your answer. And he said, yeah. He said, if you get hit again, he said, there won't be another surgery. And so, but yeah, determination, discipline, you talk about some of that work ethic, right? I think we are all shaped mentally and emotionally through events in our life. That they take us, if we allow it to take us to places mentally to where we can overcome, work through all challenges that kind of come our way. And this was, by the time I got to pro ball, I had spent over a year in a hospital bed, same room, in different times in my life. So I didn't want to sit around anymore. So that work ethic was shaped and molded in those moments, laying in that hospital bed, looking at the same four walls, and only hearing the outside, and could only close my eyes and dream about what was going on. And playing baseball was, the idea of playing baseball is what got me to the next moment, to the next hour, to the next sun up, sun down, sunrise. And so, yeah, it's kind of, as we talk about mental strength, mental conditioning, the mental side of what we do. Yeah, it's moments like that shape us all.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's been kind of I would say it's been an inspiring story for me personally, because I knew that, I think I first heard about it once I got to the team in Lynchburg. You became my manager, and I don't believe you didn't talk about it, but no. Everyone knew, right? They're like, hey, dude, you won't believe what this guy's been through. And so I knew that. And then by your example, as I watched you go throughout the way you just handled business, basically, I was like, I want to be like that dude. That was something that I looked up to. So number one, I thank you for that. And I think that's, like you're saying, it's part of your story. Like, obviously you didn't want that to happen, but it's something that's who you are now, right? And it's your kids probably know all the story, and they see your work ethic, and now you're seeing that come to fruition with Alex and with Jacob, and obviously Karen, your amazing wife. That it's just been so cool to watch that as I've grown older, and you've gone through this whole system as well.
Well, I gotta tell this, and I don't know how much you share your playing days. And
I have a little bit here and there, not so much.
Well, there are people that mutual admiration, right? You as a player, as a person, and watching a guy drafted and signed at age 17 years old. Number one pick. Everything, nobody can, unless you've been a number one pick, you have no idea, right? What comes with that?
Right.
The responsibility, not just, it's not yours alone, right? It's, you got a mom, a dad, you know, family, and it's like every player drafted, signed, they're bringing the whole train of people with them. I was a 25th round draft pick coming out of Houston that nobody knew. Number one pick, highly, you know, hyped up, touted. And then, oh, by the way, for a team who was in the middle of a losing era, not just a whole era of 21 years it took us to end that drought, right? So it's a whole organization now, the responsibility and everything like that. And the reason why I bring it up and why my mutual admiration for you, and it's no doubt that you're talking about this subject. And, you know, the things that you went through as a player, your challenges, the things that have shaped you, your adversities, your successes. One of the strongest people I know mentally when it comes to enduring what it takes, and then all the responsibility comes along with it. And then because, I mean, could run like the wind, great arm, power. How many home runs before the age of 20?
There's a few.
Come on now. 100? 90?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah. I mean, shortstop, center field. But there was a lot laid on you as a player, as a young man. And the thing that for me in this subject, right, is how do we coach the heart and the minds of players to be able to, because this game doesn't, you know, I ask guys all the time, why do you play the game? Well, I love the game. I love the game. Well, the game doesn't love you back. This game wants to chew you up, spit you out, and destroy you.
Right.
So it's the most negative game there is. We love to compete. And the thing that I loved most about Chad Hermansen was he showed up every day to compete. With whatever skill set he had for that day, and he got up the next day and did it over again, and still carrying the responsibility of what, and never once shied away from that responsibility. Way too much for a 17-year-old, way too much for an 18-year-old, but and even get to the big leagues. And I know the stories. And but mutual admiration for you of watching your career. Nobody knows if we're going to have a 10-year career, a 2-day career, or a 20-year Hall of Fame career. It just, nobody knows that. And it just, again, I'm going to tell you again, so proud of what you did, what you're doing. And the reason why I love doing what I do is because guys like yourself that are willing to put themselves out there, to try to grind it out through whatever, not just the good days, because there are way more 0 for 4s than than there are the 4 for 4s.
No doubt.
And, I mean, it doesn't matter who you are.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, one of the strongest that I've been around, and I appreciate that. And I only reason why I say that is I think that it's important. I didn't tell my story back then, Chad, because I know that everybody has their own story.
Right.
However, as I've gotten older and I've seen what it can do when you tell your story, and you never know when and if it's going to impact somebody that just needs to get over that hurdle, right? Because motivation it lasts about 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the impact to others lasts a lifetime. And if they can impact you with their story, they can impact you with a thought, then that can last a lifetime.
Yeah, well, I appreciate those words. That's great. I really appreciate that. It's one thing I thought about with you is I have to imagine that everybody's wondering, like, what is it like to be a manager in the big leagues? Like you got a 25-man roster to go through. You're dealing with a GM. Who knows what you're dealing with the owner. What are some of the, I guess, the rough spots of being a manager? What is that like in the big leagues?
Well, the rough spot is that, yeah, you talk about all the things. It's the day is, my day would start, and I listen to Jack Wilson talk about living 35 minutes from the ballpark, right?
Yeah.
When I got the job here in Texas, Karen was looking for a house. I wasn't going to do it unless they were coming with me and we were going to live here and all that. And I told her, I said, I only got one thing. It's got to be at least 30, 35 minutes away from the ballpark, because the rough part is I'm a dad.
Yeah.
I'm a husband. They didn't sign up for criticism, right?
I'm sure they love it, right?
And you can't shield them from all of it, right? Because this is, like I told you, this game and what we do, you are, one day you're a GOAT and one day you're a hero. And the reality is, you're neither. You're not the GOAT, you're not the hero. You're the manager who is trying to be a mouthpiece to the media, to take a lot of the heat off of the players when things aren't going well. When things are going well, give praise to everybody else around you. You got to try to be the glue that holds kind of everything together, knowing that each one of these coaches are away from their families, and they've got everyday issues and problems. And your big brother, your dad, your psychologist, you're the guy who kind of puts a lineup together. You got to make sure that players are mentally, emotionally prepared to go play a game. Some of the roughest patches are when it comes time to send a player down or releasing a player, knowing that when you release a guy, some of them don't play again.
Yeah.
And you're ending a dream, and not just their dream, it's their family's dream, their parents' dream, their significant other, whoever. There's, like I said before, players come with this big bag and trailer of people. They're not by themselves. And then to watch professional athletes go through challenges, knowing that we're all human beings. We have human feelings. We have, money doesn't wash that away. No matter, a lot of people think, well, they make $100 million, should be happy every single day. May ease some things. However, it doesn't stop the other problems. And then as the manager, you hope that your players can confide in you and you can help them through those moments. one of the toughest for me. Toronto, we'd gone up in the playoffs in the 2015, and we were up 2-0. We go into Toronto, we lose a game. We just need to win one more game. We're on to the league championship series, and we have a 7th inning unlike any other inning I've ever seen in my life. And I watched one of the best shortstops I've ever seen play, and Elvis Andrus, have one of the worst innings. He may never, I doubt he'll ever have an inning like that ever in a game. He's probably never had one before. He had 3 errors in 1 inning, which led to it didn't lose the game for us. Not one single domino in a game loses the game. That's the thing that most people need to get a grasp on. Is from the first pitch to the last pitch, they're all so interconnected that you can't just pick out one. We like to lock in on the single moments, right?
Yeah.
It's not like football or basketball. However, but Elvis had the 3 errors. We lose a game. Bautista hits the home run, and the bat flip heard singing around the world.
Yeah.
But to see the player go through that and to feel that pain and have no answers other than to tell him this will never define who you are, what you are as a player, nor a human being. And but to see that pain and probably one of the more challenging moments in my career of trying to come up with the words, if there are any, at that moment to help someone you love, a player that you've grown to know very well, and you pull forward. You're on the same team, and saying, "Hey, bro, we'll get over this. It's not going to define us." It's just one of those moments in our lifetime that it'll make us stronger somewhere along down the road.
Yeah, I think that's the hard part, right? Is this, national TV, huge moment. Like, Rangers are trying to move past, get onto the next level, and the worst possible thing happens to you. And I would have to imagine that how often did he actually think about that play for the rest of the winter, right? Going into, like, just probably laying down at night, just like, yeah, I kind of screwed that one up. And do you just replay it in your mind over and over again, or do you get over it right away? And I'm sure there was probably a little bit of both of that for him. But that's what professionals do, and that's trying to get the amateur to do that. It takes a little bit of time. It's not on that national stage, but it's kind of interesting to see. I would curious, and I'm kind of curious to hear about what is a Jeff Banister tirade in front of a team. What's a with that big loud voice? What does that look like getting on your team?
Well, I'll tell you this, that in 4 years I never had to do that, Chad.
Okay.
And so we all kind of, as we grow, right? When you and I were together, I was young. I think I was 29 the first year, 30 the next year, and fresh off of playing, and had all this passion and energy. And how do you let that out in certain moments? And when you're trying to reconnect your team and stay focused or refocus. And what I learned over the course of time, that really the ability to individualize those type of meetings,
Mm-hmm.
those conversations, of keeping those between just manager, single player. Now, that doesn't mean that I didn't have spirited conversations to the entire group, but more along the lines of, got your back. We're all in this together.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be the first one out of the dugout if need be.
Right.
That the best teams that I've ever been around were those that could draw themselves closer together, rally around one single moment or a group of individuals, take that collective ego and move forward. Now, the reason why I keep it individualized now is because what I've learned that relationship that you need to have with players, because they are people. We like to forget that they are, but they're individuals. They're people. They're human beings, and the relationship means the most. That you do something in front of the group, you damage that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like you almost embarrass them in a way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's the last thing I ever wanted to do. And I learned that, when I was a young manager, I would do that in not knowing at the time, but also having guys that I've managed before, that I've sat down with since, and go and let them get real with me on talking to me about, hey, I wish you would have called me aside and we'd had that, or, I wish you would have invested a little more time into who I was as a human being, right? And so I've learned that. Again, that doesn't mean that they don't get spirited. I love to rally the troops, if you will.
Well, that was, I would definitely say too, that the intensity that you brought, you probably noticed with me, I was very even keel. I wasn't a rah-rah guy. You're probably like, does this guy have a pulse? That's just who I am, but I think that's why having different personalities on a team is so important, because you have those rah-rah guys, you have the even keel, and then when you blend it together, it's kind of a perfect marriage in a way. And I think that's where you get, those good teams, the teams that can go on, championship type teams that go about in a professional way. And it just seems to blend, and it just seems to work.
No, for sure. And you need all those different personalities. The challenge in today's world, right? I mean, your son was a junior in high school, getting ready to be a senior, mm-hmm. and mine's a senior, going to graduate this year. And so, and you scout, so you get to watch all the showcase and all the perfect games and all, right? And a lot of these kids will play on 3 and 4 different teams, and probably don't show their real personalities, or their personality doesn't get to come out in that environment because they're not around long enough to let the guard down, right?
Right.
So, and we've almost cleansed that out of what these young guys do because of the culture of what they play in. They play on travel teams, and I ask these guys a lot of times, said, can you name me the 22 guys that are on your team? Can you tell me their names? Nope.
No way.
Can't do it. You can't. So it's why it's so vital that as you get the environment into the culture of where you allow these athletes to have their personalities, to try to draw out their personalities. Pete Carroll has been a big influence in my form of thinking and kind of how I've grown, and the ability to create an environment that is safe enough for these guys, for each individual player to have their personality. If you want to be loud, be loud. If you want to be even keel, be even keel. If you're a guy that is, in the corner and kind of this intense and, plays angry, then okay, play that way. However, understand that this is a family unit, and we are going to protect your personality as long as you help protect everybody else's personality, right? And that's how in this team environment things work well when you have that created, and the people around you understand that. If you ever watch the Texas Rangers play from 2015 till the day they let me go, this was a group of guys unlike any other group I ever been around. Elvis Andrus and Adrian Beltre. I mean, you watch some personalities play.
Yeah.
Rugnet Odor. I mean, Cole Hamels, each individual all the way. But they could put their own personality into a place to where it worked inside that environment.
Yeah, that's awesome. You brought up Adrian Beltre. In fact, Adrian Beltre was, if I remember, we were together when he was about 18. And there's two guys that stand out to me when I first came into pro ball. It was number one, Jose Guillen, who was with us, that just had a Roberto Clemente arm, had, Dave Parker power, if you're looking at Pittsburgh, and then Adrian Beltre. Adrian Beltre was, I think, 18. He was a little bit – we're about the same age, I believe, and he was the first guy I saw as an 18-year-old playing third base that he just did things. I was like, wow, like that's a whole different level. And we actually got to be teammates when I was with the Dodgers, just for a brief moment. But yeah, it's really interesting going from team to team at the major league level, seeing how teams interact, seeing what the clubhouse is like. Some teams are loud, boisterous. Some are, as me as a young guy coming up, I got to the big league, I was mute, right? And that's just the way the atmosphere was. It's like, you're a young guy, you don't say anything, right? And so it's kind of how it was at that time. But I noticed as I went to different teams, it seemed to be more open. It seemed to be there's some different personalities. So that was really cool to kind of experience what each team, how each organization handled things. And I'm sure you found that too as a manager and a player.
For sure. No, I like how we've evolved in the whole clubhouse atmosphere, where it's a lot more inviting now than when you first got to the big leagues. I look at it is that when you got to the big leagues, you were there to take somebody's job. Yeah. Right. And so
kind of you're almost an enemy in a way, right?
For sure. But that's a bad team environment.
Yeah.
And not to call anybody out. It's just, but that's the way it used to be, right? And there was part of the whole, well, you had to earn your stripes. And what we've learned, that kind of mentality doesn't do me. If I'm a senior player on that team and I've got a young athlete coming in that's could help us win, and my whole focus should be on the team and us winning baseball games, I'm taking that young guy underneath my wing and going, hey, how can we make this more enjoyable for you, and let's help you learn kind of the do's and don'ts, right?
Yeah.
And we've learned that over time, and we've changed that. And there are some really good things, I think, going on in our industry now. With that doesn't mean that there's still that. Hey, if you're an outfielder and there's three other outfielders on that team, one of them's struggling, some young outfielder comes up, guess who he's coming in for?
Right.
But that is, Chad, that brings up, for me, it's what our youth don't get that. They get kind of the external competition, right?
Yeah.
Team against team. However, they don't understand that internal competition. Look, if you're on a team full of teammates, you need the best teammate I can be is I'm going to push my teammate to be better. How I play, how I work. And listen, if you're either going to get better or you're going to get left behind. But we're going to make this internal competition. Some of the best competition should be that internal competition, not that external, if that makes sense to you.
No doubt. Yeah. And I think sometimes that takes a while to learn, right? As you mature as an individual, you're like, if I'm going to get better, that's my job, right? I'm going to have a coach. I'm going to have Bani there to help me hit me some fungos or throw BP to me. He's going to be there for me, but I got to want it and do it. If I struggle hitting breaking balls, I better get on a cage or have someone throw me breaking balls. But it's got to be me that takes that action and, hey, coach, I need some help here.
So I gotta ask you a question. This would be a fun story.
Yeah.
Lynchburg, Virginia. You remember when I took the bases off the field? You remember?
I do.
You remember the situation? So
I might be thinking of two different stories.
No. So you're on first base because you mentioned Jose Guillen.
Yeah.
And it was one of the many times I got thrown out in the Carolina League.
Intense.
Hey, listen, it was. I raised the white flag on that one. There was some intensity there. It was. I love to compete, and it's right. How you were on first base. Jose Guillen's at the plate. It was a 3-2 count, 2 outs. You take off running. Jose hits a ball left field, hits a light tower.
Yeah.
Drops. We were playing the Braves, and the ball drops back down the field to play. Left fielder goes over, picks it up, and kind of just tosses it to the side. Their manager, Randy Engel, comes out and has a little conversation with the umpires. Umpire says that it comes over and tells me that the ball hit the wall. And so makes it a ground rule double, in which ironically I get thrown out of the game because I couldn't believe. But here's where baseball has this fun way of kind of things happen and they show up and you just can't explain them. How I'm out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
The game ended in extra innings. You were on first base. Jose Guillen was at the plate. It was 3-2, 2 outs. You're off on the pitch. Jose hits a home run straight away center field. I looked like it was going to go in that cemetery back then.
That's right.
It was just one of those things, and it's one of those moments in baseball where 35 years it sticks in my mind to this day. Of this game is, like I said, it's a crazy game, and I love the competing side of it. So many twists and turns inside every moment of the game that if I could give young players one thing is that you got to embrace everything that goes on in the game, the struggles, the successes. There are no losers when you play this game. You learn from every event that happens inside the game. If you don't prepare yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally, it'll eventually show up. But if you're putting in the work on all three aspects, right? The physical side of it, I think the physical and mental side are hand in hand. They go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Strong body, strong mind. If you're working on your skill set, that will eventually show up on the positive side as well. So what my shirt said?
Don't be upset by the results you didn't get with the work you didn't do. Love it.
And that's the thing that I tell these young guys all the time. This is not a game that you can show up. Now, there's some, Mike Trout, maybe. Barry Bonds, maybe. You just show up and be great. I've watched Mike Trout every single day. We'd go and play him, and he's out there working. Used to love to show up and go to the ballpark early and watch Albert Pujols and the early BP every single day by himself out on the field, just rifling balls in that right center gap, one right after the other. He may never hit one in a game that way, but he was sure working on it. Now, another story of Mike Schmidt, Three River Stadium. He's sitting on 499 home runs. He goes out and he's working early. This is Mike Schmidt, 499 home runs. And he's taking early BP in Three River Stadium. And he's trying to hit a ground ball, and he can't hit a ground ball. But he knew that if he hit a ground ball, that his swing, if he could master hitting a ground ball in that BP, it allowed him to get to where he had that feeling. And it was just ball after ball after ball he was trying to hit. He goes out that night and hits 500. But it's even at that, it's Jerry Royce at the time when I was teammates with him in 1991 in Buffalo, who already pitched in a World Series, already had a no-hitter in the big leagues, and he's in AAA trying to get back to the big leagues. And he drags my rear end out there, and he's working on a changeup. I said, bro, you're 40 years old. You got a changeup. He said, no, not one good enough yet.
Wow.
And that always stuck in my mind of the work is never done, emotionally, mentally, and physically. You can never put enough time in.
That's awesome, man. I have to share one story that's really popping out of my head that and we'll wrap this up because you've been very generous with your time here. So we're in Kinston, right? And we played the game. I believe we got a few innings into it, and the rains come. The rain, like big time rain, like down east, it's rain where you can't even see, but fans are sticking around for some reason. And Kinston was a kind of a very small dugout, and the rain just starts. We're sitting in the dugout still because this is going to pass soon. It's going to drain in the dugout. We're going to be fine. But it didn't stop. It kept going, and the rain kept coming up to the dugout, and it's get to the point where you can hardly even get out of the dugout. So we're like, dude, we better get out of here. And you were the only one that decided to stay in the dugout because you're like, your mentality, like we're playing, like I will go do the field myself if we're going to play. So we're these young, stupid kids. We're like, screw this. We're going to the dugout. Right. And I've never done anything you could say disruptive. Like I'm a clean by the bell whistle type guy. I'm like, I'm going to do the right things. And a couple of my buddies, I think it was Jeff Kelly, maybe a couple other guys were like, dude, have you ever seen someone slide on the tarp, like from one side to the other? And I'm like, yeah, I've seen that. Was it Rick Dempsey I've seen with the Yankees? He did that when he was with the Orioles. That's one of the greatest things ever. And so we were like, this is our chance. Like if we don't do this now, this will never probably happen again. So I thought about it. I'm like, well, what is this going to be? Oh, we're going to get fined. This is going to be awful. I was like, but let's do it. Let's do it. So it was about me and 3 or 4 others. We got all the way down. We took our unis off. We got into our sliding shorts. And I think we left our cups on. and so the clubhouse is in left field. So you're sitting in the dugout. You see 3 or 4 guys in their underwear, their sliding shorts, starting to run toward you to the tarp. So if you picture the left field line, we're running towards shortstop, and we dive from shortstop all the way to you at the first baseline, and we could hear you yelling. By the time we even got to the tarp, you're like, "Hey, what are you doing? Turn around!" And we slid all the way to you. I didn't even look at you because I was so terrified. I'm like, he's gonna be so pissed. But I was like, but maybe he didn't see who it was, right? So we got up, and there was actually there was a crowd in the outfield, and they were cheering us on. They're like, yeah, they're doing their thing. We get up, kind of slowly walk past on the tarp back, and then sprint back to the clubhouse. And we're like, hey, we got to jump in the shower, and we got to shower up and get dressed. So maybe Bani didn't see who it was, because the rain was so bad. We shower, we get into the clubhouse, get dressed, and you were like, you must have followed us in, because as we're showering, cleaning up, you're like, Hermansen, Kelly, and like the 2 or 3 others. And you find us right away. You were like, that's $50 right there. All of you, in my wallet by the end of the day. Do you remember that story?
Oh, yes, I knew when you said Kinston, I knew exactly where you were going. Yeah, that's again, was the young manager in me.
But man, that's one of my greatest moments, and I probably, as far as I've gone to crossing the line, I'm like, but I was like, that was a perfect slide. I grew up on the slip and slide, and I'm like, oh, that was perfect. And you're like, what if you would have ran over like stakes that are in the ground? And we're like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
Well, I'll be honest with you. At the time, it was like, it was. I think Blylevin was there with you. Todd Blylevin was one of them.
Yep.
Yourself, and it was like as soon as you hit the ground, right? And again, we talked about earlier the responsibility of being number 1 pick.
Yeah.
And the responsibility of a young manager taking care of a number 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
And all I could see was, some grounds crew had left out the tarp stakes or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do we explain Chad Hermansen's chest open wide up?
Right.
But you know what? You live and learn, and if I could put that, tell my younger self as a young manager, and they were all just kids.
Yeah.
And there are moments for fun, right? And it's one of the things that I tell dads who have athletes, or any kid for that matter, but athletes, moms and dads, or whoever the significant adult in a child's life, right? That lighten up a little bit, be dad. Stop it with the backseat conversations, where your child is having a conversation with the back of your head because they didn't perform or didn't do what you felt like they should have done on a field of play or court, or let it alone. It's not the end of the world. Because, and you know this, our kids want us to be dad first. And dads should know how to have fun, should know how to laugh, should know how to cry, and should know how to just listen sometimes. Or don't ask the questions. There's going to come a time where your athlete's going to come back to you and go, hey, mom or dad, what do you think? and they're going to open that door up to you. And even in today's, even Major League Manager, understanding when those coaching moments, when a player is vulnerable to be coached, when a player is vulnerable to be instructed. I listened to some of the conversations you guys had about instructors and coaches trying to change you. Well, that's not allowing you to, you got to the big leagues being Chad Hermansen. Jack Wilson got to the big leagues by being Jack Wilson. Embracing that. Let's find out if it works. Give you the information. Anxious coaches or anxious instructors or anxious parents want to dive in too quickly. And they want to tinker, make changes. And, well, just hopefully the people that you're reaching and impacting understand that we're developing a motor skill, right? Baseball is a series of motor skills. It's not muscle memory, right? There's some genetics that come into play. You got to be gifted athletically to some degree. But the better we can develop this motor skill, and you start developing that motor skill from the first time you ever put a bat in your hand, a glove on your hand, a ball in your hand. And so me as a coach, as an instructor, I have to know all of that kinetic chain to understand who you are and how it works. And then, develop that relationship with you that builds that trust that that, hey, I'm going to be there when you win and if you fail. And I'm going to be in the shadows during your successes. But I'm going to allow you to do both. Got to allow you to do both. Because if we don't allow you to do both, then how are you ever going to maneuver your way into getting better? Because my guess is that Chad Hermansen, by the time he got to pro ball, he'd probably been the best player on the team all the way through. And first sign of adversity was probably not till somewhere in Lynchburg, Virginia. Right?
There was a lot there. Yeah, it's a battle.
And for some guys, Chad, sometimes if some guys, the first time they ever fail is in the big leagues, ever in their life at the game of baseball. Really. And we got to allow them to understand how to process that first and make sense of it, and then give them a plan of attack on how to maneuver through those challenging times.
No doubt. That's awesome, man. Well, Bani, we could probably go on for 3 more hours. I mean, this has been incredible. Always love talking to you, and you've always had great insight, great wisdom. Any last, you could say, nuggets for our listeners, and what at the end of the day gives you your mental edge?
Again, I'll go back to all the things in my life, the moments in my life, those the adversities that early on, understanding that that's just the file or the sharpening tool that was going to allow me, when I understood that once I went through a challenge, right, whether it was physically or emotionally or mentally, that look back at it and go, because right in the moment, right? Well, here, let me do this for you. And the reason why I'm gonna do this is a great friend of mine, Rod Olson, who Coach O, and you can, you know, he puts it this way, and I read this earlier today, and it kind of sums up all this, and for me, it's you know, a crisis or a challenge. It's only, like right now, we're going through a season of crisis, a season of challenge. It's only a season. It's not going to last forever. And so mentally, when you wrap your mind around that what you're going through right now is not going to last forever. You learn how to endure it, right? It's like you get cut on the arm. It's going to scab up. It's not going to feel good, but eventually it may scar, but it's going to go away. So the next time that happens, you know, it's not as bad as we make it out to be, right? So yeah. The crisis is an event over which we have no control. And that's the other part for me, is that when I stopped trying to control everything that I didn't try to control all the good times, but when things went bad, right? Try to control them, hold on too tight, doesn't work out very well. No. And that's the thing that I would love to tell your listeners and the people that are watching, is that, you know, daily life, baseball game, on average, you wake up in the morning, you're going to have 3 bad hops. 3. On average. It's just an event. How you respond is most important. Okay. We can fly off the handle, or we can go dig ourselves a hole, or we can go, you know what? Not as bad as we think it is. We move on. And it never really defines, you know, who we are unless we let it define us.
That's awesome, man. Like I said, we could keep going forever. This is so awesome. But Bani, I wanted to thank you for coming on board. You know, you've been such an awesome person for me, and I've always looked up to you. And hopefully we can do this again one time. We'll talk about a different subject one day and kind of tackle that. But again, I want to thank you for coming on board. And is there any place that people can find you? You know, you're posting a lot of stuff online that's pretty cool. Do you have a place where people can find you?
Well, it's mostly on Twitter. It's Bani Rooster 28. That's, you know, and there's a lot of stuff on Facebook that is typically friend only. Yeah. And again, that's Bani Rooster 28. Yeah, I think you know, Instagram, Alex, she hit me up on Instagram. So yeah. But I try to stay relevant with some of the younger crowd, just so that again, it gets down to, you know, when we got to communicate with each other, it's, you know, I don't expect them to step back in time and pick up a rotary phone and call me. You know, I need to text, I need to Snapchat, I need to Instagram, I need to
stay in the loop, right?
Exactly. So
awesome.
It's been awesome, brother. I appreciate it. And again, I couldn't be happier for you and proud of you. And it's been fun to watch, and tell Bracken that Karen and I said hello, and we'll be watching. Hopefully I'll see you out there out on the scouting trail.
Awesome. Yeah. Tell your wife hello, tell Karen hello, and we'll be seeing you around. I appreciate you coming on board. Love you, man.
Love you, man. Be good.
All right. We'll see you. Take care of yourself.